The buzz in the auditorium was electric. Students of Everton University, a prestigious institution known for nurturing some of the brightest minds in America, sat in eager anticipation. The news had spread like wildfire. Selena Gomez, the internationally renowned singer, actress, and philanthropist, was coming to speak at their university. For weeks, social media had been abuzz with excitement. Selena wasn't just a star, she was a symbol of resilience. Everyone knew about her struggles, battling lupus, mental health issues, and the pressures of fame at a young age. But they also knew about her victories, her music topping the charts, her acting career flourishing, and her philanthropic efforts making a difference worldwide. As the clock struck 6 p.m., the grand doors of the university's Auditorium of Dreams opened. Students flooded in, some wearing Selena's merchandise, others holding banners with quotes from her songs. The stage was set, bathed in warm golden lights, with a massive screen behind displaying Selena Gomez, From Struggles to Success, a story of hope. Then, the moment arrived. The crowd erupted in cheers as Selena Gomez walked onto the stage, dressed in a simple yet elegant white outfit. She smiled warmly, waving at the audience. Taking a deep breath, she stepped up to the microphone. "Wow," she said, her voice filled with emotion. This is incredible. Seeing all of you here, excited, waiting to hear my story, means more than I can express." The auditorium fell into a hush as she continued, "I want to tell you about the real me, not the celebrity you see on TV, but the girl who struggled, the girl who almost gave up, and the girl who found her way back." The students leaned forward, hanging on to her every word. Selena took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the eager faces in the crowd. "Let me take you back to where it all began, my childhood in Grand Prairie, Texas." The screen behind her flickered to life, displaying a black and white photo of a young Selena, standing next to her mother, Mandy. "My mom had me when she was just 16. She was a teenager, a single mom, and we didn't have much. I remember nights when we couldn't afford gas to get to work, when we had to search for coins under the couch to buy food. There were days when my mom would go hungry just so I could eat." The audience was silent, absorbing every word. "I didn't grow up in a mansion. I didn't have a silver spoon. My mother worked multiple jobs, she did theater, she was a waitress, she even sold DVDs just to make sure we had what we needed. And through all of it, she never let me feel like we were struggling. She kept me inspired, always telling me, 'Selena, you're meant for something big.'" She smiled wistfully. "But I didn't believe that at first. I was just a girl with big dreams in a small town. I wanted to be on TV, I wanted to sing, I wanted to perform, but deep down, I was scared. What if I wasn't good enough? What if I failed?" A few heads in the audience nodded, resonating with her fears. "I auditioned for roles, but rejection was constant. You're not pretty enough. You're not talented enough. You don't have what it takes." I heard it all. And every time I got rejected, I felt a little more broken. Her voice grew softer. "Have any of you ever felt that way? Like no matter how hard you try, the world keeps telling you you're not enough?" A few hands went up, and she nodded. "I know that feeling. And let me tell you, it's a lie. The world will try to define you, but only you get to decide who you are. That's something I had to learn the hard way." The audience remained silent, hanging on to her words. "But let me tell you about the moment that changed everything for me." She smiled, a knowing glint in her eye. Selena leaned against the podium, her eyes filled with nostalgia. "I remember the day my mom got a call that would change our lives. Disney wanted me to audition for a show. I was 10 years old. My heart was racing, I knew this was my shot." A picture of young Selena on the set of Barney and Friends appeared on the screen behind her. "Before Disney, I was just another kid trying to make it. My first real gig was on Barney and Friends. Yes, I was one of those kids dancing with the big purple dinosaur. I had no clue that the girl standing next to me, Demi Lovato, would one day become one of my best friends." The crowd chuckled, some pulling out their phones to tweet about it. Disney was a dream come true. I got cast as Alex Russo in Wizards of Waverly Place, and suddenly, my life changed overnight. I was on billboards, kids were dressing up as my character for Halloween, and everywhere I went, people screamed my name. She paused, her expression turning serious. But you know what no one tells you about fame? That it's heavy. The audience quieted. I was a teenager, just like many of you here. But while my friends were worrying about school dances, I was working 14-hour days. I barely slept. I barely ate. And every mistake I made was captured by the media. The screen behind her flashed with magazine covers, each displaying headlines about her relationships, her weight, her appearance. Suddenly, my life wasn't mine anymore. People had opinions about everything, what I wore, who I dated, even how much I weighed. I was just a kid, but I was being judged like an adult. And I didn't know how to handle it. She exhaled, gripping the podium. That's when the pressure started to break me. The room was silent, students listening intently. But what happened next, that's where my real story begins. She looked up, determination in her eyes. Selena took a deep breath, her hands resting lightly on the podium. On the outside, I was living a dream. I had fame, money, and millions of fans. But on the inside? She hesitated for a moment before continuing. I was breaking. The screen behind her flashed with a series of headlines. Selena Gomez cancels tour due to health issues. Selena's emotional breakdown, what's going on? Selena checks into rehab, is she okay? The audience was silent, absorbing the reality behind the glamorous image. I was exhausted. The constant pressure to be perfect drained me. Every day, I woke up feeling like I had to prove my worth to the world. I smiled on camera, but at night, I cried myself to sleep. Her voice wavered slightly. I started struggling with anxiety and depression. I didn't want to get out of bed. I lost my passion for music, for acting, for everything. And worst of all, I felt alone. Like no one would understand. A few students in the audience nodded, resonating with her words. Then, in 2014, I was diagnosed with lupus, an autoimmune disease that attacks the body. I needed a kidney transplant. And let me tell you, when you face something like that, you start questioning everything. A picture of Selena in a hospital bed appeared on the screen, holding hands with her best friend, Francia Raisa, who had donated a kidney to save her life. I realized then that all the fame in the world means nothing if you don't have your health. If you don't have peace. If you don't have real love around you. The room was completely silent, some students visibly emotional. I had to take a step back. I had to figure out who I really was, outside of the fame, outside of the spotlight. And let me tell you, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. She exhaled deeply. But that's when my journey really began. She smiled slightly, a spark of resilience in her eyes. Selena looked out at the students, her voice softer now, more vulnerable. When I stepped away from the spotlight, I thought things would get easier. But they didn't. In fact, they got harder. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I had everything I ever dreamed of, but I didn't feel like I deserved it. I felt like a fraud. The voices in my head told me I wasn't enough, that I would never be enough. She clasped her hands together. I won't lie to you, I reached a point where I didn't want to be here anymore. I was struggling with depression, anxiety, and the fear that no matter what I did, I would always be defined by my past mistakes. A few students exchanged glances, some wiping their eyes. I remember one night, I sat alone in my house, staring at my reflection, and I asked myself, if I disappear tomorrow, would it even matter? She let that question hang in the air for a moment. And then, something happened. A small, hopeful smile crossed her lips. My mom walked in. She sat beside me, held my hand, and said, Selena, do you know how many people love you? How many people look up to you? How many lives you've changed without even realizing it? She looked up, making eye contact with the students. That's when it hit me. my pain wasn't just mine. There were millions of people out there who felt the same way. Who struggled with self-worth, with pressure, with mental health. And I realized, I had a choice. I could let my pain destroy me, or I could use it to help others. The screen behind her lit up with the words, "Your pain can be your purpose." The students erupted into applause. Selena smiled, her eyes shining with determination. That's when I decided, I wasn't going to let my struggles define me. I was going to fight back. And I was going to make a difference. She took a deep breath. And that's when my real comeback began. The crowd leaned in, eager to hear what happened next. Selena took a sip of water, steadying herself before continuing. Once I decided to fight back, I knew I needed help. And let me tell you, asking for help is one of the bravest things you can do. She paused, scanning the audience. Mental health isn't something you can just snap out of. It's a battle. And for me, that battle meant stepping away from the industry, checking into therapy, and completely rewiring the way I thought about myself. The screen behind her flashed images of her in different rehabilitation centers, walking through nature, journaling, and meditating. I went to therapy, something I never thought I'd do. I surrounded myself with people who truly loved me for me, not for what I could offer them. And most importantly, I stopped living for approval. She exhaled deeply. You see, for most of my life, I chased validation. From fans, from the media, from people who didn't even know the real me. But I had to learn the hard way, no amount of likes, awards, or success will ever make you love yourself if you don't already. The audience nodded, many taking notes. So I made a promise to myself, from now on, I would do things because they made me happy. Not because they made me famous. The screen changed to images of her back in the studio, smiling, recording music again. That's when I got back into music, not for the industry, but for me. I wrote from my heart. I poured my pain into my lyrics. And that's how Rare and Lose You to Love Me were born. The students clapped, some singing the lyrics softly. Those songs weren't just about heartbreak. They were about rediscovering who I was, about choosing myself. And when they hit #1, it wasn't just a career win, it was proof that my truth, my struggles, and my voice mattered. She placed a hand over her heart. And let me tell you, so does yours. The energy in the room shifted. Students leaned in closer, inspired by her words. But my journey wasn't just about music. I wanted to do more. I wanted to give back. She smiled. And that's when I realized, true success isn't about how many followers you have. It's about how many lives you touch. The audience applauded, completely captivated. Selena's eyes glowed with passion as she continued. Once I started healing, I knew I had to do more than just get better, I had to help others find their way too. The screen behind her displayed images of her working with mental health organizations, hospitals, and young women in need. I started speaking out about mental health. I stopped hiding my struggles. Instead of pretending to be perfect, I told the truth, I have anxiety. I have depression. And that's okay. She glanced at the students. How many of you have struggled with mental health at some point? Dozens of hands shot up. Selena nodded. See? You're not alone. None of us are. And the moment I realized that, I knew I had to create something bigger than myself. The screen flashed the logo of Rare Beauty, her beauty brand with the tagline. Makeup for every kind of beautiful. The audience clapped in recognition. I didn't start Rare Beauty just to sell makeup. I started it because I was tired of society making people, especially young women, feel like they weren't good enough. The screen changed to statistics about mental health. 1 in 5 young adults struggle with mental illness. Only 40% receive the help they need. Self-worth should never be defined by beauty standards. So I made a decision, a percentage of every Rare Beauty product would go to mental health resources. And guess what? So far, we've raised over $5 million to help people just like you and me. The students erupted in applause. Some even wiped away tears. But my biggest mission? She smiled. Changing the conversation around mental health. Making sure that no one ever feels like they have to suffer in silence. She took a deep breath. Because here's the truth, the strongest thing you can do is ask for help. The bravest thing you can do is admit when you're struggling. And the most powerful thing you can do is keep going. The students clapped again, some rising to their feet. But I didn't stop there. She smirked playfully. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that we're capable of more than we think. She leaned forward. And that's exactly what I want you to remember. The students hung on to her every word. Selena smiled as she looked at the students, their eyes filled with admiration and curiosity. You know, people often ask me, Selena, how did you keep going when everything felt like it was falling apart? She paused, letting the question sink in. The truth? I wanted to quit. Many times. The screen behind her displayed a quote. You may see me struggle, but you will never see me quit. When I was at my lowest, I had two choices, let life break me, or fight back. And I chose to fight. She clenched her fist gently. Because let me tell you something, resilience isn't about never failing. It's about rising every time you do. The audience nodded, some even murmuring in agreement. I realized that my struggles weren't obstacles, they were stepping stones. Every hardship taught me something. Every heartbreak made me stronger. Every failure led me to something greater. She glanced at a few students in the front row. Some of you are probably feeling lost right now. Maybe you're doubting yourself, wondering if you'll ever achieve your dreams. Her voice softened. But let me remind you, every great success story begins with struggle. The screen flashed images of famous figures, Oprah Winfrey, who was fired from her first TV job, Steve Jobs, who was removed from his own company, J.K. Rowling, who was rejected multiple times before Harry Potter became a phenomenon. Do you think these people gave up? No. They kept going. And so will you. She straightened up, her voice filled with conviction. Your story is still being written. Whatever you're going through right now, it's not the end. It's just a chapter. A deep silence filled the auditorium as her words resonated. And one day, you'll look back and realize that every struggle, every tear, and every sleepless night led you to exactly where you were meant to be. She smiled, nodding at the audience. So don't give up. Because your breakthrough might be just around the corner. The students clapped again, some standing up in applause. Selena laughed lightly, shaking her head. But before I leave you with my final thoughts, I want to share one last lesson, the one that changed my life forever. The audience leaned in, eager to hear her final message. Selena let the applause settle before stepping forward, her voice calm but filled with emotion. If I could leave you with just one lesson today, it would be this: your worth is not measured by your success, your followers, or what the world thinks of you. She paused, scanning the room. For so many years, I thought I had to prove myself. I thought I had to be perfect. But let me tell you something, perfection is a lie. The screen behind her changed to a simple message. You are enough. A few students audibly gasped, while others nodded in agreement. You don't have to be the smartest, the richest, or the most talented person in the room. You just have to be you. And that's enough. Her voice grew softer. I spent years chasing approval from the world. But true happiness? It doesn't come from fame. It doesn't come from money. It comes from knowing who you are and accepting yourself completely. She smiled warmly. You want to succeed? Chase what sets your soul on fire. Not what makes other people like you. Chase your dreams, but never lose yourself along the way. The students clapped again, some with tears in their eyes. And one last thing, she said, raising her finger playfully. Be kind. To yourself and to others. Because at the end of the day, what really matters isn't how much you achieve, it's how much love you give. The audience erupted into applause, some rising to their feet once again. But wait. Selena laughed. There's one final thing I want to say before I go. The students cheered, eager to hear her closing words. The applause gradually faded, and Selena took one last deep breath. The energy in the room was electric, filled with hope, determination, and inspiration. Before I go, I want to leave you with something powerful, something that will stay with you long after you walk out of this auditorium. She looked around at the eager faces of the students, their eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and personal reflection. Every single one of you has a purpose. You are here for a reason. Maybe you don't see it yet, maybe you're still figuring it out, but trust me, it's there. She placed a hand on her heart. You are more than your struggles. You are more than your past. You are more than your mistakes. And you are strong enough to get through whatever life throws at you. The screen behind her flashed with one last message. Never give up on yourself. The students erupted into applause, some standing, some clapping with tearful smiles. Go after your dreams. Be fearless. And most importantly, be kind to yourself. Because the world needs more people who believe in themselves and in each other. She stepped back, placing her hand over her heart. Thank you for letting me share my story with you tonight. And remember, your story is just beginning. The entire auditorium roared in applause, cheers echoing through the walls. Some students wiped away tears, others chanted her name. Selena smiled, waving as she stepped back. Go change the world, she said, her voice filled with warmth. I believe in you. With that, she walked off stage, leaving behind not just a speech, but a movement. A wave of young minds inspired, ready to take on the world, just like she did. And that, my friends, is how you turn struggle into strength.